Welcome everyone. Now before we get to the stories, I just wanted to thank each and every one of you personally for subscribing to the channel. We are now past the 100 subscribers mark, and I am just overly thrilled and excited and very happy overall to see every one of you being so engaged with the stories, wanting to comment and give me your feedback, and that's just very helpful, and I can't thank you guys enough. I've recently taken a break from telling stories, and I do apologize, but just to let you guys know, I am back. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it.
Number 1.
Late at night, I usually go to the bathroom multiple times, but for the past 4 days, every time I go to leave, I can see myself still standing in the mirror from the corner of my eye. It is like the other me is watching me leave the bathroom. It terrifies me to the point where I almost run out without looking directly at the mirror. I never told my husband about it because I didn't want to acknowledge it out loud. Earlier today, I took a nap in our bed while he sat in the chair next to it watching TV. When I woke up, he told me that he had seen me sit up and crawl backwards to the edge of the bed and stand up in front of our bedroom door from the corner of his eye. He thought it was weird that I got up like that because I'm in the last month of my pregnancy and I can't really move so good without it hurting. So he tried talking to me. When I didn't answer, he looked at the door to find me not there and still sleeping in bed. I got really creeped out, and I finally told him about what I have been seeing in the bathroom. He thought it was creepy as well, but didn't want to really talk about it anymore because he thinks it will give whatever it is power or energy. I have no idea what it wants or why we both seen it.
Number 2.
When I was a teenager, I used to babysit my cousin Alyssa. She was little, maybe almost 2, maybe a little older, old enough to say sentences. I'm giving her a bath before bed when she looks into the hallway and gets a terrified look on her face and starts crying. At this moment, my aunt's Pomeranian starts going nuts as well, barking and growling into the hallway. The atmosphere in the room became uncomfortable, and I started getting scared. I took her downstairs from the 3rd floor in the townhouse to try to calm her down. I asked her what was wrong, and she said something along the lines of, "The man with the black eyes was there." When I continued to pry, she looked up at the 2nd floor stairs, her eyes getting big, and looks at me, bringing her finger up to her mouth, and said, "Shh," while shaking her head no.
Number 3.
My daughter was 4 years old when we lived in our last home. I was a single mom at the time, so it was just she and I alone in the home. I always got an uncomfortable feeling in a room, particularly the closet area, but never thought much of it until one evening. I had put her to bed, and as I was doing chores, I walked by her room and heard her whispering. I listened for a bit, thinking she was just talking to herself, but it was definitely a two-way conversation, with her saying, "Uh-huh, okay," stuff like that. I walked in and asked her who she was talking to. She smiled uncomfortably and said, "No one." I took her out into the hall and she wouldn't say anything, but I could tell she was afraid. Finally, we went outside the house. She said there was a man in her room who didn't want us in the house, and he had told her this and to tell her mom to leave. I moved us out a month later. She has not since ever had an episode like this.
Number 4.
I didn't grow up believing in ghosts because I didn't want to. There's enough to be scared of as it is. Then one morning, when my friend's mom picked us up for carpool, we were about 16. I mentioned that I was really creeped out by this bathroom under the stairs in my house that no one ever used. For no particular reason, I just found it eerie. I grew up in a Victorian built in the 1800s, so eerie vibes were part of the package. That reminded her of her own creepy bathroom association. She told me that when she lived in the countryside of Germany for a year, there was a little section in the home that no one but the middle sister used, who was about 9 years old at the time. During this time period, her sister would wake up with bloodshot eyes, sometimes even bruises, and feel totally exhausted. They did everything to investigate what was going on, including sleeping in her room, working with the child psychologist, and even a school counselor. My friend doesn't remember much from this time period, other than her sister being disturbed by something the year they lived there. She mentioned that she and her other sister, the oldest, also hated using that bathroom because they would always feel off and find thick black hairs stuck in the drain. Each of them had fine blonde hair. At this point in the story, my friend's mom abruptly stopped the car and jerked her head around, saying, "That's where the woman killed herself. She drowned herself in the bathtub." Her mom was clearly shaken. She said part of the reason they moved was because something felt off in the house.
Number 5.
Mommy told me never to go in the basement, but I wanted to see what was making that noise. It kind of sounded like a puppy, and I wanted to see the puppy, so I opened the basement door and tiptoed down a bit. I didn't see a puppy, and then Mommy yanked me out of the basement and yelled at me. Mommy had never yelled at me before, and it made me sad, and I cried. Then Mommy told me never to go in the basement again, and she gave me a cookie. That made me feel better, so I didn't ask her why the boy in the basement was making noises like a puppy, or why he had no hands or feet.
Number 6.
When my sister Betsy and I were kids, our family lived for a while in a charming old farmhouse. We loved exploring its dusty corners and climbing the apple tree in the backyard. But our favorite thing was the ghost. We called her Mother because she seemed so kind and nurturing. Some mornings, Betsy and I would wake up, and on each of our nightstands, we'd find a cup that hadn't been there the night before. Mother had left them there, worried that we'd get thirsty during the night. She just wanted to take care of us. Among the home's original furnishings was an antique wooden chair, which we kept against the back wall of the living room. Whenever we were preoccupied watching TV or playing a game, Mother would inch that chair forward across the room toward us. Sometimes she'd manage to move it all the way to the center of the room. We always felt sad putting it back against the wall. Mother just wanted to be near us. Years later, long after we'd moved out, I found an old newspaper article about the farmhouse's original occupant, a widow. She'd murdered her 2 children by giving them each a cup of poisoned milk before bed. Then she hung herself. The article included a photo of the farmhouse's living room, with the woman's body hanging from a beam. Beneath her, knocked over, was that old wooden chair, placed exactly in the center of the room.
Number 7.
I never really understood what people who were parents really meant when they said they could tell exactly what their kids were up to, or when they could read their kids' body language or by the way they spoke if they were lying or not. I guess what I'm trying to say is that as a father of about 4 years now, I have been able to read my daughter's cries. She has about 4 different types of cries. She has a sad cry for when she misses you or when she really wants something. She has an angry cry for when she can't get her way. She has a fake cry for when she clearly just wants your attention. But the 4th cry, this is the one that scares me the most. This is the cry that makes me hesitate walking over to my daughter's room in the middle of the night. On certain nights, I confess when I say that I don't even want to approach her room, or worse, pretend she isn't even crying. I know, that's messed up. But if you only knew what my wife and I have had to hear, you'd understand where I was coming from. Just last week, my daughter started crying in the middle of the night, right around 3 a.m. or so. I know, coincidence, right? But this was the cry that I dreaded to check up on. But this was my child, and I needed to comfort her, and so I made my way into her room. I turned on her lights and asked her what was wrong. She trembled with tears flowing down her cheeks. I sat on the bed with her and held her close. She was freezing cold. "What's wrong, honey? Tell Daddy." She sniffs, and then she points over to the open closet and says, "The hanging man from the ceiling keeps giggling and making faces at me. I don't like it. Can you make him stop? He's looking at me right now." I paused, dead in my tracks. I could have sworn the closet door was closed when I put her to sleep. Well, that about wraps up our episode for tonight, guys. Once again, thank each and every one of you for being so supportive of this channel. But we would like to hear from you. If you have your own scary stories that you would like to be featured on this channel, please submit all of those stories to the email address in the description box below. We hope to hear from you soon. And once again, remember, even when you think you're alone,
You never really are.